Hello. Good day, everyone. How's everyone doing? Today, we are going to talk about human personality. As you can see on the slide, this is part 1. Ibig sabihin, merong part 2. Para hindi masyadong mahaba yung lecture natin for each lectures, no? I divided this lecture series into 2 parts. The first question I want to answer for today is, what is personality? As psych majors, personality is a very psychological term and people will expect you to understand the dynamics of personality. Pero bago mo i-explain sa kanila how personality works, you first have to know kung ano bang ibig sabihin ng personality. So let's define what exactly do we mean by personality. The nearest Tagalog word for personality is the word ugali or pag-uugali ng tao. And this word, ugali, it's not a highfalutin word. Kahit yung English version na personality, we often use these words in our everyday conversation. So for example, when you use such word in sentences like, ang pangit ng ugali niya, gusto ko ng ugali niya, our personalities do not match, I'm so attracted to her personality, what exactly do we mean by that? Ano yung pangit sa kanya? Ano yung gusto mo sa kanya? Ano yung hindi nagmamatch sa inyo? So what are we pertaining to? What are we talking about when we discuss a person's personality? Yan yung dapat nating unang malaman. Okay? So if you check definitions of personality in different general psychology textbooks, this will tell you that personality o yung pag-uugali ng tao refers to 3 aspects of our psyche. And what are those 3 aspects of our psyche that consist our personality? We have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So yung thoughts, ito yung mga iniisip mo. Feelings, ito yung mga nararamdaman mo. And behaviors are the things that you constantly do. So you add those 3 up. Thoughts plus behaviors plus feelings equals personality. So going back to those sentences, balikan natin, no? When you use the word personality in these sentences, ang pangit ng ugali niya. Anong pangit sa ugali niya? It could be pangit yung thoughts niya, pangit yung feelings niya, or pangit yung mga ginagawa niya. Or when you say you are attracted to a person's personality, saan ka na-attract? You are attracted to any of the 3 or maybe all of the 3. Gusto mo yung pag-iisip niya, gusto mo yung patterns of feelings niya, at gusto mo rin yung kanyang behaviors. But let's now officially define what we mean by personality in the language of psychology. According to psychologists, personality is your usual way of thinking, feeling, and behaving in a certain situation. Let me repeat. Personality is a person's usual way of thinking, feeling, behaving in a certain situation. Mahalaga yung salitang usual way. Another term for usual way is, o sa Tagalog, yung usual way is madalas. Ano yung madalas mong iniisip, madalas mong nararamdaman, madalas mong ginagawa, that's usual way. Or in another English word, a better word for this is the word pattern. What is your pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving in a certain situation? Yan yung iyong personality. So if we are going to translate this in Tagalog, personality refers to madalas na pag-iisip, madalas na pakiramdam, paggawa ng isang tao sa isang sitwasyon. So again, I want you to browse through the English version of the definition and the Tagalog version of the definition. That's what you mean by personality or ugali sa Tagalog. Basta, sa simpleng Tagalog, pag sinasabi nating ugali or personality, ano ka madalas? Ano yung pattern mo whenever you are faced in a certain situation? And of course, when we say pattern, ibig sabihin ito yung madalas mong ginagawa, ito yung overall average of your thinking, feeling, and behavior whenever you are placed in a situation. Let's have a short exercise para lang mas maging maliwanag sa'yo what personality means. I want you to reflect about aspects of your personality when you are faced in the following situations. Alright? So I want you to visualize your personality in the following situation. Halimbawa, you are in this situation, pinagalitan ka ng parents mo. If your parents are angry towards you, usually, what are the things that you think about? What do you feel? And what do you usually do while your parents are so mad at you? Habang sinisermonan ka ng parents mo, ano yung pattern mo in terms of thinking, feeling, and behaving? Visualize yourself in that situation. And then visualize yourself whenever you experience success. Let's say you pass a big exam or you won a very important game in basketball. Kapag nananalo ka, when you experience success, what do you usually think about? What do you usually feel? And what do you usually do? And then number 3, how about kapag naiinis ka? If you are annoyed to someone, let's say someone is annoying you because that person is noisy. You are studying and your seatmate is noisy, he is annoying you. Usually, what do you think about? What do you feel? And what do you do with that feeling when you are faced in that situation? Next, how about in situations where you are pressured? Let's say your parents are pressuring you to get high grades, or you are being pressured to win a game, which is so hard to win because the opposing team is very strong. What do you usually think about? What do you feel? And what do you do to handle such pressure? And last one, I think many can relate. What is your personality when you are so in love with someone? What do you usually think about? What do you usually feel? And what do you usually do when you are madly in love with someone? So again, as you can see on the slide, all visualizations, all images that you saw inside your head in these situations refers to your personality. Your pattern of your thinking, feeling, and behaving in all these situations na nakikita nyo on your slide, yan yung personality mo. Okay? Kaya, alam nyo, given this definition of personality, we already have one application that we can apply. How do you get to know someone really well? You can use the definition of personality. Now that you know that personality is a person's pattern, usual way of thinking, feeling, and behaving, paano mo mas makikilala talaga yung ugali ng isang tao? Well, the answer to that question is, if you can follow my line of thinking, you need to see the person in different situations. Remember, personality, the true personality of a person appears when he or she is exposed to different situations. Hindi mo pwedeng i-conclude na yung pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving ng tao, yun na yung personality niya by seeing it for the first time. You have to consistently see the person in different situations for you to really say that you know the personality of this person. It takes time to really get to know another person's personality. It takes time to really accurately see the true personality of a person. Kasi marami mga tao talaga ngayon plastic. Lalo na yung mga tao na kakakilala mo pa lang, you just met. Most of the time, these people would like to impress you, best foot forward, so you cannot really trust that the way they think, what they feel, what they do, that you can see at that moment is their personality. The only way that you can really get to know a person really well in terms of their personality is you need to see them in different situations, and that takes time. So again, the application here is, if you want to know, or if you want to really get to know a person deeply, you want to know that person's personality, you need time. You need to see this person to be exposed in different situations so you can see the general average of this person's thinking, feeling, and behaving in different situations. That is why in connection to this, hindi ako nag-agree sa love at first sight. Please don't play this game. the term itself, love at first sight, it is very dangerous. When you fall in love with a person because you think his or her personality is like this, and that's only the first time you saw the person, chances are that is not the true personality of that person. Anong sinabi ko kanina? Malamang best foot forward yan. Ini-impress ka lang yan. Hindi pa talaga yan yung ugali niya. And I know one friend of mine who fell victim into this game, the love at first sight game, no? So to make the long story short, this friend of mine met someone in a family party. So merong guy doon, yung friend ko yung girl, no? So meron doong guy na nakita siya na na-inlove siya. Kasi ang ganda raw ng connection nila. So they click, the guy is tall, the guy is funny, he's very caring, she fell in love. And the next day, they went out on a date, and within that week, nagkaroon na sila ng relationship. They were already in a relationship. Why? Because they thought they were love at first sight with each other. Now, what happened? To make the long story short, fast forward, this friend na kinukwento ko sa inyo, hindi niya na-realize o unti-unti as the relationship went on, she saw disturbing psychological problems from her boyfriend. Ano yung mga psychological problems na yon? Marami, but one of the problems that was very disturbing was he's having anger outburst. Small things make him explode. There was even a time in a restaurant, nagkamali lang daw ng bigay yung waiter ng order. In order nung guy iced tea, ang dumating mango juice, the guy exploded. He made a scene in the restaurant. So hiyang-hiya yung kaibigan ko. And there were a lot of times they would be fighting over small petty things, but his reaction would be overly big. As in to the point na ang pinag-aawayan lang nila is kung may pinagkaiba ba yung color pink at yung color fuchsia. That was the issue. And the guy, sa Tagalog na pikon, so he exploded and physically hurt my friend. So that was his problem. Now, my friend wanted out of the relationship. She can no longer handle the stress, the humiliation that she's experiencing. But every time she wants to get out of the relationship, the guy threatens my friend. Kasi my friend, again, did not realize, did not see that this guy has love for guns. Dami niyang baril. Meron din pala siyang baril sa kotse. So every time they would fight and every time the girl would threaten to leave, the guy would get the gun, show her the gun, and tell her bad things will happen if she will leave him. Pati yung family niya tinatreaten. Sasabihin ng guy, remember, alam ko saan nakatira yung mga parents mo, kayang-kaya ko silang gawan ng masama if you leave me. So you can only imagine the trauma that my friend underwent because of love at first sight. Now, what's the point here? The point here is, why is it my friend did not see those bad signs from her boyfriend? Bakit hindi niya nakita yung mga attributes na yan na hindi pala maganda para gawin niyang boyfriend yun? Hindi niya nakita na mahilig pa sa baril. Hindi niya nakita na may anger management problem pala. Answer, this friend of mine did not see that person's real personality. That personality that this guy showed in the dinner party is not the true personality. Kailan lang lumabas? Kailan talaga lumabas yung tunay na kulay niya? When time went by, that they were already in a relationship, the guy was exposed in different situations, then that was the time that my friend saw the real personality of the guy. Mas maganda sana kung yung ginawa ng friend ko, pinatagal niya muna yung courtship. 'Di ba? Nag-date muna sila ng matagal para makita nung friend ko yung guy, how is the guy in different situations, and that's where she decides if she wants to make the guy her boyfriend. Wala na, love at first sight. So walang element of time. The true personality was not exposed. She based her decision to make this guy her boyfriend on a personality that was fake. Best foot forward, and that's a dangerous game. So I hope you learned from that story, no? If you really want to get to know a person's personality, because that will be your basis for making this person your lifetime partner. What do you need to do? Give it time to appear. Okay? Pag bago pa lang kayo magkakilala, yung personality, quote and quote, yung personality ng taong yan, malamang sa malamang hindi pa yan yun. That person is just impressing you. Best foot forward. Let that person be exposed to different situations so you can see from there that person's true personality. Alright? So that's question number 1. What is personality? Now let's move on to question number 2. Saan galing ang personality? If you want to really deeper understand the dynamics of human personality, you have to know where it comes from. What are the psychological forces that shape a person's personality? Okay? Again, one of the facts of the world na talagang walang makakadeny is people differ in personalities. Maybe we have similarities, but there is no one person in this world who has exactly the same personality as yours. Okay? We differ in a lot of ways. Kaya, dito pa lang meron na kaagad tayong application. If you don't like to be disappointed with people, if you don't like to be dismayed by people, you acknowledge that you will have a lot of differences with people. Kasi the more na ine-expect mo na yung personality mo, dapat yun din yung personality ng isang tao, madi-disappoint ka lang eh. So to avoid that unrealistic expectation, you start with the fact that all the people you will meet in your life at some point will have a different personality compared to you. And you need to accept that. And that's fine. Kung introvert ka, extrovert siya, okay lang yon. Because again, that's already a given in life. We differ in our personalities. Okay? So, wag na nating i-disappoint yung mga sarili natin and expect people to have the same personality like ours. It's just not true. Alright? So anyway, again, going back to my question, now that you have accepted the fact that we differ in personality, where are those differences coming from? Bakit ba tayo magkakaiba ng ugali? What are the psychological forces out there that explain the differences? Number 1, it's genetics. Did you know that genes has a very powerful influence on what kind of personality we will have? Meron tayong ugaling namamana, 'di ba? Yung Tagalog expression natin diyan, mana ka sa tatay mo, mana ka sa nanay mo, manang-mana ka sa kuya mo. That statement actually, it is a hereditary statement. It has something to do with genes. Meron tayong mga personality traits. We have those traits because we genetically inherited those traits from our parents. That's why one way to find out what are these attributes that you have inherited from your parents or from your family in general, this is a good question to ask, no? Reflect. What personality traits run in your family? Mga kaugalian na sa tingin mo, halos lahat ng miyembro ng pamilya nyo meron nun. Like for instance, I know some students, no, na ang sagot nila dito is lahat ng kamag-anak nila loves laughter, mahilig magpatawa. Or lahat ng kamag-anak nila mainiti ng ulo. In that case, yung pagiging palatawa o yung pagiging mainiti ng ulo could be personality traits that is genetically inherited within that family. Kaya sila ganun lahat. Kaya sila lahat mainitin ng ulo, kaya sila lahat palatawa, kaya sila lahat mababaw ang luha because those traits run within their genes. And when we talk about genes and heredity, we remember our discussion on human development. I hope you did. Yung how the sperm meets the egg. Remember when the sperm meets the egg and it forms a fertilized egg, is it entirely cells? Is it entirely physical? Answer, no. When the sperm meets the egg, something non-physical is already inside that egg. And one of those non-physical psychological element that we genetically inherit is none other than our personality. In fact, I still remember that those words na sinabi nung narrator from the documentary Inside the Womb. Remember, I transcribe it for you. Ang sinabi niya doon, the genes we inherit has already predetermined our looks. That's the physical side. Meron talagang impluensya yung genes sa physical na itsura natin, but what we genetically inherit, it's not only physical. What else do we inherit other than physical attributes? And much of our, take note, character. Whether we are stubborn, intelligent, thrill seeker, or good at music, those words in yellow are all small components of a person's personality. Meron na tayo niyan, nandoon pa lang tayo inside the mother's womb. Where did these things come from? From what we inherited from the cells of our parents, from the sperm and from the egg, specifically within the DNAs of those cells. And did you know that in the Bible, this idea is confirmed na meron na talagang personality yung tao even when we are inside in our mother's womb? I remember the passage of Psalms chapter 139 verse 16. David says, your here refers to God. Your eyes saw my unformed body. So God can see your unformed body inside your mother's womb. The physical, God can see the physical, your unformed body. But God sees more than the physical. He sees something else inside your body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. God can see something non-physical here, the things written within your DNA. And one of those things that God can see within your DNA is your personality. Kahit nandoon ka pa lang inside your mother's womb. Alright? So that's one of the sources of human personality, it's genetics. Now, there are some personality traits that are highly hereditary. Actually, when we talk about personality traits, hindi naman kasi lahat ng traits malakas o malaki ang contribution ng genes. In other words, there are certain personality attributes that are highly genetic, while there are some personality attributes where genes have nothing to do with it. Now, for the following slides, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung mga personality traits where studies show that this is highly hereditary. So, if you have this kind of trait, malamang sa malamang, you inherited this from your parents. Like, for example, your temper or the way you handle your emotions, it's very hereditary. Okay, so pag nakita nyo yung term na temperament from the word temper, this refers to your ability to handle your different emotions, especially the negative ones. How do you handle anger? How do you handle jealousy? How do you handle fear? Lahat yon, how you handle those emotions refer to your temperament. And again, one study that really shows the genetic origin of temperament is the very popular marshmallow experiment. So kayo na lang bahala magbasa, no? If you want to read the original study of the marshmallow experiment by Walter Mischel, you can just Google scholar him and read the article where he did the marshmallow experiment. But basically what Walter Mischel discovered here is at such a young age, even without coaching, when you let a child wait for a marshmallow, when you show a child a marshmallow and you tell him or her to wait, not to eat the marshmallow, tempers begin to arise. Diba? Can you imagine? Gustong-gusto mo nang kainin yung marshmallow, but you cannot eat the marshmallow because you have to wait for the experimenter to come back to the lab so that you will have another marshmallow. The temptation is so strong. Now, that emotion of yourself wanting to eat the marshmallow, but you also want to wait, that will bring out your temperament. In the original study, you will see that different children have different temperament. Some children are so effective in distracting themselves to prevent themselves from eating the marshmallow, While some children, they cannot handle the temptation so well, they give up, they don't resist, they eat the marshmallow. But then again, who taught them to wait? Who taught them to delay their gratification? Who taught them not to delay their gratification? This is not something that they learned, but this is something that is within them from the day that they were born. Because again, temperament is highly genetics. What else? Psychological disorders, meron din siyang malaking genetic component. Like for example, there are certain psychological disorders that are basically you have it because you genetically inherited it. Yung tendencies mo to develop certain disorders like depression and schizophrenia, studies show malaki ang genetic component niyan. So if one of your parents or both of your parents suffer from any of these disorders, there is a higher chance that genetically, as an offspring of your parents, you will also suffer from those psychological disorders. Okay, so that's number one, temperament, highly genetic. And then most psychological disorders also have genetic components. We will talk more about that when we discuss abnormal psychology, where you will see that lots of psychological disorders and mental illnesses, halos lahat may genetic component talaga, no? But I also like to share another psychological component that is highly genetic, they say, although it's not yet proven, is a person's sexual orientation. Okay? Like for example, when we talk about homosexuality, bakit ba ang tao nagiging homosexual or gay? Why would a person become attracted of other people of the same sex? Are they born that way or are they nurtured that way? The answer, up until today, psychologists are not yet sure. There are debates, there are studies and counter-studies that prove or disprove the idea that maybe homosexuality is genetics. Like for example, in this article, again, if you just want to Google this and read the article on your own, no? Ang sinasabi lang dito is may mga studies daw, again, daw, hindi pa sure, na nagpapakita that homosexuality is genetics. There is such a thing as a gay gene. So if you have this gay gene, almost more than 50% chance in your development, you become gay because you have a gay gene within your body. But not all studies agree with this. May mga studies naman nagsasabi na wala talagang genetic basis yung same-sex attraction or being gay. There's no such thing as a gay gene. A person becomes gay not because he or she is born gay, but that person has chosen to be gay. That person was shaped to be gay. Alright? So yun yung mga studies and counter-studies that make this issue that make this issue very complex. Hindi pa talaga sure kung ang homosexuality ba talaga ay may genetic component o wala. Alright? Basta ang clear lang, there are certain personality attributes that are highly genetics. Number 2, another source of our personality is our environment. So the first one is genetics. Meron tayo mga ugali na namamana, pero meron din tayo mga ugaling natututunan. Those are two different things. Namana, genetic, natutunan from your environment. And what consists of your environment that shapes your personality? Meron tayo mga ugali that we learned from our family, specifically parents and siblings or relatives. We have personality traits we develop through religion or through our faith, or friends, or culture in general. In fact, no, just to demonstrate how powerful the environment is in shaping personality, kahit sa mga schools Diba? I don't know if you can sense this, but each school, may kanya-kanya silang culture. And the culture of that school, when you attend such school, your personality will be affected by that culture of the school. Kaya meron tayong mga ugaling Lasaliano, iba yun sa ugaling taga-UP. There are certain personality traits that are shared by students from UST, or maybe traits shared by students from Ateneo. Diba? These are all valid observations because again, when you attend any school, chances are the culture of that school, whatever that is, will have a constant effect on your personality. Diba? Maapektuhan yan yung thinking, feeling, and behavior mo eh. Kaya iba-iba talaga ng ugali, iba-iba ng thinking, feeling, behavior yung mga students from different universities. Now, university pa lang yan. But the environment can also refer to cultural. Now you go outside school, let's talk about nationality. Iba-iba rin yung personalities ng mga Pilipino, ibang-iba yung personality ng mga Kano, ibang-iba na naman yung personality ng mga Chinese. Right? That's why in psychology, we have a specialized field called cultural psychology, where we try to study how the culture of a nation affects the psyche, specifically the personality of the people who are in that nation, experiencing that culture. Talagang hindi mo siya pwedeng i-deny, no? Na meron talagang epekto yung kultura sa ating personality. Like, ugaling Pilipino. Di ba? Meron tayo mga certain attributes na Pilipino lang ang meron yan because it's within our culture. Like for example, yung pangaharana o yung pagkakamay. Diba? Well, in some cultures, these are weird behaviors, but it's not weird for us. Why? Because these are cultural practices that enters our personality system. So whenever we see people doing this or we do this, we don't find ourselves weird because it's part of who we are. It's part of our personality. Alright? So if you want to learn more about the influence of culture on a person's psyche, pag-aralan nyo yung cultural psychology or even Psikolohiyang Pilipino. I think in your flowchart meron tayong subject na ganyan. Psikolohiyang Pilipino, we are going to study how the Filipino culture constantly affects the Filipino psyche. Okay, so personality can also be shaped by the environment. There is one application that I want to teach you in connection to the idea that personality can be shaped by the environment. How do you explain people falling out of love? Halimbawa, meron kang karelasyon at napansin mo na yung karelasyon mo nagfo-fall out of love na sa'yo. She's no longer the same. She's no longer passionate about you. She's no longer talking to you that much as she used to before. She's falling out of love. Question why. Apply the lesson. Diba? That is a personality change eh. The way she thinks about you, the way she feels about you, the way she does things to you, nag-iba. Diba? Lahat lumamig. Bakit? Personality. Oh, bakit? There is something in her environment that explains why she's becoming like that to you. And most of the time, based on my experience, based on the cases I've handled, malamang sa malamang that girl that you have na nagbago yung personality sa'yo, there is someone in her environment that makes her like that. Maybe she fell in love with somebody else. Diba? And that's part of her environment. That person that she's now in love with, who is no longer you, it's a part of her environment which explains her personality change. That's how powerful the environment is in shaping a person's personality. Okay? Questions so far? Just type your questions right there if you have any. Now, a very important question that most students ask when we talk about personality is, yung namana ba natin genetically na personality, can we still change it through the environment? In fact, this is a very popular question in the field of personality psychology. Nature or nurture? Is personality nature or nurture? The answer is both. Okay? Personality is both nature and nurture. In connection to that, to answer this question, let's say you inherited a personality attribute genetically. Does that mean that you will die having that personality attribute? Does that mean it's already immodifiable? Sa salita natin, nasa dugo mo na yan, hindi ka na magbago? The answer is no. Pwede mo pa rin baguhin yung ugali mo na genetically namana mo from your parents. That's why I like this picture. I hope you can appreciate, no? Look at this. The hands here represents the power of the environment. The environmental forces. Again, the family, the church, and all the other external things around you. All these things can still shape your genes in a certain way to change personality attributes. So it's not too late. Hindi porket namana mo yung isang ugali genetically, idadahilan mo na, hindi na ako pwede magbago kasi nasa dugo ko na to. With the right stimulation from the environment, you can still adjust that personality attribute you genetically inherited. Let me give you some examples of how environment can modify the genetic predisposition that you have because you inherited such genes from your parents. Halimbawa, a person or a kid is genetically born shy. And by the way, according to studies, shyness or anxiety around people is highly genetic. May mga ganyang tao talaga, yung nervous system nila, it is easily irritated by the presence of other people, which explains their social anxiety. Now, this kid is born with a shyness level of 10. It's in his genes. It runs in his family. Lahat ng kamag-anak niya mahihiyain. Lahat ng kamag-anak niya kapag maraming tao experience social anxiety. Question, does that mean that this boy right here will die like this? Wala na ba siyang pwedeng gawin to improve his sociability, which is very important in today's society? Diba? Hindi ka makakakuha ng magandang trabaho kung hindi ka marunong makisama. Paano kung makikisama? May social anxiety ka. Good news, may paraan to improve your shyness level that is so high. Level mo 10. In a scale of 1 to 10, nasa 10 ka. Now, what should we do to lower down that shyness level of this boy? Let this boy spend time with friends who are outgoing or extroverts, because these friends will teach this boy how to be more comfortable with other people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that if these friends or if this boy join the group of these friends, magiging zero yung shyness level niya. Of course not. Meron pa rin siyang genetic predisposition of being shy, but the genetic predisposition will be toned down, will be pacified from a 10, because this boy is now being taught how to socialize effectively by these people. It can go down to just 6. Mahiyain pa rin siya, pero hindi na siya kasing mahiyain like before na nasa 10 siya, because the environment is there to help him adjust. That 10 becomes a 6, which is better compared to a perfect 10 of being shy. 'Di ba? At least pag 6, nagsasali-salita ka na diyan. Nag-i-initiate ka na ng conversation diyan. 'Di ba? Nagiging assertive ka na diyan. Unlike naman pag 10, talagang hindi ka kakausap ng ibang tao. Now, what made that possible? From 10 to 6, the power of the environment. Another example, let's say you are genetically born to be very angry. Yung temperament mo, it's called hot-tempered. Small things irritate you. Small things make you explode. You are at a level 10. Does that mean that you will die an angry person? Does that mean wala ka nang pwedeng gawin to change yourself? The answer is no. Pwede pa rin through the environment. So if you want to make yourself a little bit less angry, daanin mo sa environment. Like, for example, this girl is very angry, but if you let her join a group of friends that are so good, who are so good with self-control, like these monks, diba? Tuturuan siya mag-meditate, tuturuan siya mag-breathing exercise, tuturuan siyang mag-visualize. So her environment is teaching her to do those things. That anger level 10 becomes a 4, from 10 to 4. Of course, from time to time, she still gets angry, but it's no longer as intense as she used to be when she was in level 10 of anger. And again, what made that possible? From 10 to 4, the influence of the environment. So the environment can still more or less modify what you genetically inherited. And this is good news. This is good news, especially when we talk about psychological disorders. Remember, sinabi ko kanina, karamihan ng mga psychological disorders, highly genetics, di ba? Karamihan ng mga psychological disorders, meron talagang role yung genes for those disorders. Now that we know that the environment can be used to improve what we internally inherited through our genes, we can apply this in making psychological illnesses better. Let me give you one example. Halimbawa, let's pick depression. Somebody is born genetically depressed. Lagi siyang malungkot. So within his or her genes, that person has a tendency to be super sad. Talagang sobrang lungkot niya. Mabilis silang malungkot. Now, question, does that mean they will die sad? Wala na ba silang chance para yung sadness nila mabago? The answer is, may chance pa rin. Especially if you modify the environment in such a way that it is incompatible with their depressive genes. And in the Bible, there is a passage which I think, when you place people, depressed people, in this kind of environment, their level of depression will improve. From high, it becomes low because they are living in such a great environment. And this is written, Romans 12, 9 to 21. Let me read for you. What kind of environment is this that will tone down depressive symptoms? And tell me if you agree. Imagine a depressed person is living in this environment. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay." Again, use your visualization skills. Imagine that a depressed person is living in an environment where people do this. Lahat ng binasa ko kanina, ginagawa nila yan, ginagawa nila yan, ginagawa nila to. Now, that person's tendency to be depressed will be very low because the environment is not in line with the depressive genes that that person has. On the other hand, baliktarin mo. You place a person with tendency for depression in an environment that is so depressing. People are fighting, people are pulling each other down, 'di ba? People are always sad in that environment. Lalabas ka agad 'yun. The tendency will be realized because the environment turns on the depressive genes. But based on what I've read, I don't think this kind of environment will turn the depressive genes on. Rather, it will turn it off. It will shut it down. Diba? That's the power of the environment in shaping or in influencing your genetic predispositions. Alright? So again, this is good news in terms of how we understand psychological disorders. Meron pang hope. Diba? Meron pang hope para sa mga tao na yung disorders nila genetically inherited. Let's just design an environment that will make their genetic disorder, psychological disorders that are genetic, less likely to come out. Another good news that we can learn from this idea is this lesson is teaching us that we can still improve ourselves as human beings. let's say masama ang ugali mo, you have a lot of immaturities in your character, people hate you, people don't like to associate with you because you have certain tendencies, you have certain attributes that are not good. The good news is, you have the power to still change it. Kaya yung statement na sasabihin mo, alam mo bro, magbabago na ako, that's very possible. But how can you change yourself? Definitely not genetically, right? You cannot modify your genes using your hands, right? But you can modify your genes through the environment. So those people with character problems who needs improvement in their personality, they can still change through the right kind of environment. So we always ask that question. Gusto mo nang magbago? Question. Do you think your environment is supportive to your desire to change certain attributes? Let's be more specific. Let's say smoking. Diba? You are such a smoker, but you want to change that personality attribute. Ayaw mo nang naninigarilyo. Is it possible? Yes. Especially if you place yourself in an environment that is in line with the attribute that you want to develop. Such as, not smoking anymore. Kaya na-notice nyo karamihan ng mga taong nagre-rehab. Rehabilitation. Right? Drugs, smoking. If they want to rehabilitate themselves, what's the first thing that they should do? Change in environment. They cannot continue spending time with their environment that reinforces smoking or drugs. Diba? Hanggat kasama mo yung mga kaibigan mo na nagda-drugs din, na nag-i-smoke din, mahirap talagang magbago. So one big step to take is you let go of this environment. You go to an environment na in line doon sa attribute na gusto mong i-develop, such as most rehabilitation centers. Right? So again, going back to that illustration, that's what we do when we try to change a person's personality. We do this environmentally. We need to make sure that the attribute change that we want to see from this person is in line with what the environment is shaping them to be. The church, the school discipline, parental discipline, government laws, and of course the media. Especially the family. Diba? When we discuss theories of personality, you will see, especially when we talk about Freud, how important family influence is in shaping a person's personality. Marami tayong mga kaugalian, pangit man o maganda, nanggaling yan sa tinuro sa atin ng ating pamilya while we were growing up. In the language of Freud, during the formative years. And the Bible agrees with this. That's why the Bible keeps on repeating that parents should be very responsible in teaching their children good values. Proverbs 22 verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Merong special mention yung childhood. Ano raw dapat nangyayari sa childhood? Merong training na nangyayari. Bakit hindi na lang sinabing train up someone anytime where they should go? Kasi childhood is a special period where personality is very malleable or quote-unquote shapeable. Kaya pang madali pang i-shape ang personality during the formative years. Kaya the Bible mentioned specifically childhood is the best time to really shape on personality. Diba? Kapag adult na, halimbawa, matigas na yung personality, it's already set. But you still want to change certain attributes of these adults that are not good. What should we do? Again, we go to the environment. One good example of this would be, that's the reason why we imprison criminals. Why do we imprison criminals? You have to know this. We don't only punish them by doing bad, but in the Philippine justice system, we imprison criminals because we are hoping that by putting them inside the jails, they will have better personalities in the future when they get out. Especially kung yung kaso hindi naman heinous crime, hindi naman life sentence, di ba? Kaya kinukulong ang tao. Kaya may city jail, kaya may correctional for the girls. because these environments are expected to modify certain personality attributes that they have. Para paglabas nila, hindi na sila magnanakaw, hindi na sila mangkakarnap, hindi na sila mangkikidnap, or whatever crimes they committed before. These new environments will teach them, will help them become better individuals. Right? So one application na naiisip ko in connection to this idea is, again, you can go macro level eh. Paano natin papalitan yung mga personality attributes that are not good in the cultural level? Like Philippines, marami yan. Maraming kaugaliang mga Pilipino ang hindi maganda na dapat palitan. Like what? One example of personality attribute, no, na sa tingin ko dapat baguhin ng mga Pilipino is the tendency of young people to get pregnant early. Poor delay of gratification is a personality attribute. And I think that's one of the problems today eh. 'Di ba? Did you see this data? Tinalo pa natin yung buong ASEAN average when it comes to teenage pregnancy. Now, let's analyze and connect the lesson to this data. What will make sense? Why do you think our data on teenage pregnancy is very high? Bakit mataas? Bakit tinalo pa natin yung ASEAN average on teenage pregnancy? We go back to the environment. The key question is, what is it in the environment in the Philippines, specifically the environment of our young people, that is reinforcing the idea or reinforcing the attribute of poor delay of gratification? What could that be? I know you're critical thinkers, you figure it out. Pero para lang mas ma-visualize nyo, isa-isahin nyo yan. What is the role of the church in these statistics? How about school discipline? How about parental discipline? How about government laws? How about the media? See? If you can trace where this pattern of behavior is coming from, having poor delay of gratification, getting pregnant early, kapag makita mo saan nanggagaling yan, that's already problem half solved. Now, medyo natatempa ko ngayon na sagutin yung tanong na yan. Saan ba nanggagaling yung behaviors na yan? Which component of the environment can this be blamed to? Ayoko na lang mag-comment. No? Gusto ko kayo mag-isip. Pero meron yan. And once we identify which of the environmental component that personality attribute is coming from, now we fix that component of the environment. So going back to teenage pregnancy, sino kaya ang may pinakamalaking contribution dyan in connection to these environmental components? Who among these can greatly explain why teenage pregnancy is very high in the Philippines? Alright, so in summary, ano yung natutunan natin about personality? Personality is both nature and nurture. In fact, the overlap between genes and environment becomes you. Okay? More about this when we talk about theories of personality. Hindi ko pa tinuro lahat dito. Kasi alam nyo ba, in connection to this model, genes and environment, there are certain personality attributes that are more genes than environment, and there are attributes that are more environment than genes. And what are those attributes that are more genes and more environment? We talk about that in theories of personality. So let's just close this class by me giving you the big ideas for today's lesson. Ano yung mga dapat nyong natutunan? Number 1, personality is the person's consistent thinking, feeling, and behaving in a given situation. So we talk about 3 things. We refer to 3 things to our psyche when we talk about personality: thinking, feeling, and behaving. Number 2, true personality, o sa Tagalog yung tunay na ugali ng tao, lumalabas yan kapag na-expose na siya sa different situations. But for you to expose that person in different situations, you need time para lumabas yung tunay na ugali. So wag magmamadali when it comes to choosing a lifetime partner. Let the real personality come out by exposing that person in different situations. Number 3, personality is both the influence of genes and environment. That word "and" is very important. Personality is not entirely genetic, it's not entirely environmental, it's both. Parehong may contribution. And number 4, we are not the slaves of our genes. Because most people think that way. Nasa dugo ko na kasi yan, wala na ako magagawa dyan eh. Diba? Kaya paninindigan ko na yung ugali kong yan kasi nasa lahi naman natin yan. That is a wrong framework. Because we can always still do something with our environment that will more or less shape our genetic predispositions. Alright? So if you have any questions about personality in connection to everything I've discussed right now, just post it in the chat box and I'll try to answer those questions. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a great day. God bless. Bye-bye.